This is Brian Meador from East Carolina University. You are listening to the Sports Objective, the official, unofficial podcast of the Pirates.
Well, it's summertime. We're looking forward to obviously a big season for the Pirates. And Bubba, we've got a very special guest with us right now.
Absolutely, Dave. Game 4 for the Pirates this year, 6 o'clock on September 25th, and the Charleston Southern Bucs will be coming to Dowdy-Ficklen Stadium. And right now we have the head coach in Notre Dame's all-time leading rusher, Autry Denson. Coach, we appreciate your time this morning.
Oh, man, thank you so much for having me.
No doubt, Coach. Looking forward to the opportunity to hopefully we meet you in person, but glad to have you right here. Summertime. So talk about certainly with recruiting. I mean, this has been one of the craziest times. I know you guys had spring football. Let's talk about that. How did that go, and how different you're a football guy, how different was that? Normally when we talk about spring football, it's practices, but you guys had games, right?
Yes, sir. It was, in light of everything that happened, it was a blessing to even get our guys on the field. So we were very thankful for that. And then, like anything, man, we took advantage of the opportunity to compete. And so, as you talked about, different than normal springs, you would be just your practices, you're against each other. But what we were able to do, man, is get a much more in-depth evaluation because we were playing outside competition, and we played really good competition, which helps as well. So we got 4 games in. So now what we've been able to do is take that information and those evaluations and really now train this summer with more intentionality, knowing who the guys that are already, kind of knowing how guys are going to respond to live action, because we got a chance to see that in working our freshmen that are reported in, again, with that same mindset of filling those gaps that we saw needed to be filled in the spring.
Coach, I'm gonna segue off that and then circle back around to Charleston Southern football. But you talk about playing those 4 games in the spring. I've been wanting to ask an FCS head coach this, and here's my opportunity. There's been a lot of talk over the years of moving FCS football or even Group of 5 football to the spring to give it more exposure or to let the Power 5 have all the spotlight. And I think that's the stupidest idea on the planet. After doing it because you had to because of COVID, what do you think of playing football in the spring versus fall?
You know what? This is just my opinion, but football is meant to be played in the fall. Now, there has been conversation about, doing inter-squad scrimmages or things of that. I mean, we're doing, scrimmages against other people in the spring. And I am a fan of that. I know we've talked about that because everybody has the same issue in the spring. I don't care if you're Power 5, if you're FCS, is that you don't have the depth. Your seniors have left and your freshmen haven't reported. So you don't have as much depth in the spring. And I think for us at an FCS level, getting a chance to play, I mean, we're blessed to be around South Carolina, Clemson. It may even be an additional revenue stream for us to where we can have an additional spring game against someone who's a little bit bigger, get the exposure, but you get much better in evaluation in the spring, kind of like we did this spring, because you're playing against somebody else. So I'm a fan of that, but no, fall is where ball is meant to be played.
Coach, we agree 100%. Fall is where college football is meant to be played, and I have often thought that these spring football games, South Carolina, Clemson, East Carolina, all have these FBS programs. If we were playing against an FCS or even a Division II or Division III opponent, to give everybody a chance to get practice against somebody else in a scrimmage for a spring football game, like you said, it would be additional revenue for FCS and lower universities, and then you get a chance to hit somebody else and actually see what you need to improve on.
Yeah, I agreed,
Coach. And also to add to that, it would also, if you move I want to get your take on this being an FCS coach, wouldn't it hurt you as far as revenue wise if you play the Power 5 schools, you play the Group of 5 schools to get the money? Wouldn't that hurt you as well as if you're playing FCS versus FCS in the spring and you're not getting the money that you would in the fall?
No doubt. That is definitely that's part of the business model, right, of FCS. So yeah, it definitely, and you saw that in the spring, right, because you didn't have those teams to play, and that's exciting too. I mean, you want to see really good games, and you want to see that cross different levels playing each other and things of that nature. But yeah, your revenue stream is a big deal when you come to the model of the FCS.
And plus the opportunity to pull off the upset. Now we hope we don't see one in Greenville this fall, but it's always exciting when you see the FCS teams upsetting the FBS opponents, particularly if it's a Power Five. That makes it extra special.
Yes, sir. I will not comment or agree or disagree with your comment on that.
Now, Coach, taking a look at things before we dive into your time there at Charleston Southern, you had the opportunity to, like I mentioned in the open, play for Notre Dame, had a very successful career there, 2 years for Lou Holtz and also 2 for Bob Davie. So just talking about playing for those guys, obviously Coach Holtz is so well known, tremendous motivator and, organizer, but just touch on him and, how he's impacted you as a coach, and then also just your path into coaching.
You know what? I'll touch on Coach Holtz, and I can't say impacted. I have to say continuing to impact because we're still in contact. That's one of the things about when you play for Lou Holtz. It is the most challenging time of your life as a college athlete, but it also is the most rewarding moving forward because once you go through his 2 years of hazing for me, you got a lifetime advocate in him and a teacher and a mentor and all of those things. So it's well worth it. When you start talking about just how he continues to impact me is that going to Notre Dame afforded me the opportunity, in addition to my high school coach, and even when I was in the NFL, I've been really blessed to have some really good mentors. You're talking about at the University of Notre Dame, not only Lou Holtz, but talking about Greg Madison. You're talking about Charlie Strong. You're talking about Urban Meyer. You're talking about Dan Mullen came through there as a GA. You're talking about Tabor Johnson, being drafted to coach Dungy in the NFL. So how it impacts me is that they've sown so many good lessons into me that I have the tools I need now as a head coach, and I just pull the ones that I need off at the time, depending on what I need. My path into coaching now is totally different, and me and Coach Meyer probably he probably more than anybody has a lot to do with how I got into coaching, him and Charlie Strong. Because I never wanted to go into coaching. When I retired from the NFL, I actually went into the financial industry and had an 8-person team at Merrill Lynch. So I did that for over 10 years. And it wasn't until I accepted my calling to go into ministry that God led me back to sports. And so my first job was a head coaching job that I never interviewed for. So, just further evidence that it was God pulling the strings and not me. But all those years that I spent away from coaching, Charlie Strong and Urban Meyer would stay just in my ear about how I needed to be in coach and how I needed to do it. And when I decided to make the jump after 1 year being a high school head coach to college, the very first person I called was Coach Meyer, and he walked me through the process of how things were going to go. And I still rely upon him and Coach Strong to this day a lot.
Coach, that's a heck of a coaching tree there to lean on. Obviously with Urban Meyer, Charlie Strong, and then Lou Holtz. But I got to ask you, you've probably been asked this when you mention Lou Holtz, because so many people do. Do you do a Lou Holtz?
It's probably not a very good one. And I'm going to tell you why. I was really blessed. Coach Holtz is really easy. From this standpoint, he's very much like Jimmy Johnson. So when I played for Jimmy Johnson, the first thing he said to me was that I have favorites, and your job is to become one of them. How you do that is you make plays. And so I was blessed to play early at Notre Dame. So although Coach Holtz has extremely high standards and nobody gets a free pass, I became one of his guys fairly early. And at that point for him, it's a different dynamic. I can do a Lou Holtz impression, but I would say that for some of my teammates because they do a much better job.
Okay. All right.
Coach, I have a question regarding your alma mater, Notre Dame. I promise we'll get to your football club in just a second.
No problem.
One of the things I'm interested in, being your coach and former player at Notre Dame, is the whole expansion of the college football playoff and the fact that Notre Dame would, being not a part of a conference, how they may be left out of the top 4. I just want to get your take on that. And I'm a fan of the expansion. Are you a fan of the expansion? I know that's a big part of it right there is if they're one of the best 4 teams, I feel like they should be in that mix, but I just want to get your take on that.
You know what? Jack Swarberg said it best. He said, thank God that now nobody can cry that we'll have to play an extra game now. So it used to be that everyone cried that Notre Dame didn't play a conference championship game. So now without being a top 4, you have to play an additional week. So if you are a Notre Dame alumnus and someone who's there, you go there with the mindset because you don't play in a conference that every game is a national championship. So if it's 12 games, 13 games, 14 games, it don't matter. Just line them up and let's play.
Yeah, and I think the idea of expanding the playoff to 12 teams, obviously, in the FCS level, you guys have a true playoff. So I think if the FBS does expand to a 12-team playoff, I think it benefits everybody. I think it gives everybody a shot. Notre Dame, most years, they're going to be in the mix with a 12-team playoff to get in as an independent. You're going to have your 5 Power 5 champions. And then for your East Carolinas, who we cover, it gives us a legitimate opportunity if the highest ranked group of 5 champion it automatically gets in if they expand to 12. So I think going to 12 would be much similar to what the FCS has and a much more fair playoff and better for everybody.
It will be, and it'll be very much what it allows now for just for a team to gel, right? We see it in the NFL every year where teams throughout the season, they work out their kinks and now they can play well together and they gel at the end of the year as opposed to, coming out hot and having one bad week and it costs you, early. So everybody wants it. I'm glad to see that they are making that move, and it'll be fun. It's always good conversation, right? Then they'll be saying, how can they improve upon the 12? So just conversations. You know how that is.
Yeah. I won't get too excited until it's passed, Coach. It's still talking at this point, but God knows anything that makes sense, the NCAA sends to simply screw up.
I will not agree or disagree with that comment about the NCAA.
Well, Coach, obviously one of the things we're going to talk about is a ball club too, but the whole situation with NC State with COVID-19. I want to get your thoughts on as far as vaccinations. We can't tell the kids to say, hey, you got to get vaccinated, but at the same time, I felt really bad, and they're one of our rival schools, but I felt bad for Elliott Avent and those guys. They put a lot of time, effort, all the seniors not to get to play in the College World Series. I realize it's baseball, but that could happen to whatever team, fill in the blank.
Yeah, that's hard. I think everybody shares the same sentiment, right? Because no matter what sport it is, you respect the process and the amount of time and sacrifice that goes into it. And so you never want to see anything like that happen. But very much what you alluded to earlier is that, you can't force anyone to do anything. And I think that as anything, you'll have certain teams, because it really is a team decision. It's individual, but you're still a part of a team. And I think that you'll have certain teams that will, and I just read something with Patrick Peterson talking about that, saying that, some people are going to use that as an advantage, right? It is a competitive advantage to be fully vaccinated because you have the peace of mind and less worry, and you don't have this situation happening. So I think that it is what we say around here is we say it has to be coach fed, meaning we have to lead them and guide them and give them good stuff. Coach fed, but player led. It's ultimately going to be a player decision because it is a player game, and you pray that you can build a culture strong enough or have leaders that are strong enough that can get guys to see the bigger picture, for the good of the team, and you don't have that situation happen.
A little inside scoop for you, Coach. Bubba, Coach Houston said publicly that we have 111 players vaccinated at this point. Is that right?
Mm.
Yeah, that's correct. And he said at leleast 111 out of 126.
Oh, wow. That's good.
But, Coach, you talked about your path into coaching, prior to getting the head job at Charleston Southern, and this is your third year in your current role, but you've been a running backs coach at your alma mater, Notre Dame, but then also USF, Miami of Ohio, Bethune-Cookman. Just talk about, that head coaching opportunity being extended to you by Jeff Barber, who's an East Carolina guy, someone we're very familiar with.
I am very appreciative that Jeff was obedient, but the same reason I came here is the person who orchestrated this opportunity, and that's God. So I alluded to that, I got into coaching because I accepted my call to go into ministry. And you named some really great places that I've been blessed to go to, including my alma mater, and contribute as a coach. But that was never the goal for me and my family. When we decided we were getting into coaching, we said as a family, because we were using it as ministry, that wherever God would send us, we would willingly go. And so the goal was never to be at Notre Dame. The goal was never to be at South Florida. The goal was to go wherever God was going to take us and then obediently serve where we were. And so God orchestrated this. I did without a doubt, though. There was no doubt in my mind that when we did make that move, that a head coaching opportunity would be at somewhere down the lines. And so while I'm appreciative to Jeff being obedient to God and Coach Holtz, because Coach Holtz also spoke to him about it, this is God's plan for my life. I'm very clear on that, to run what we consider over here football ministry, not a program, but a football ministry that does have an extremely, extremely important football component to it, because it's the platform on which we influence and win lives for Christ, mentor young men to graduate, to be leaders at home in their community, and then also win national championships. And that's not a slip of the tongue. That's multiple championships, just in case you were confused.
Coach, we're talking obviously about Jeff Barber being the AD. Talk about him. We like him a lot. We had him on the show a couple of years ago. A Greenville guy, but obviously there at Charleston Southern. Talk about him and your relationship with Jeff Barber.
You know what? It's interesting you said that, because as time moves on, me and Jeff have a really good working relationship. He does a really good job of just building things. I mean, it's in his past when he was at Liberty. I mean, he built that place up really well, and he's doing the same thing here. One of the things he told me, and you talking about speaking to his credibility, was when I interviewed, he said, "Hey, I don't like that scoreboard. We're gonna change that thing." Before I ever played my first game here, we had a 800,000 plus video board sitting out there. Right now, we're changing the turf. He's already talking about expanding the stadium. So he is really good at going out and being able to do the things that he has the vision for. And so, man, I appreciate him giving me the resources I need to go out and compete.
Coach, you mentioned you're a man of faith. You make that perfectly clear, and you mentioned how you don't call it a program, you call it a football ministry. How on the recruiting front, when you're going into kids' homes and you have that aspect and that approach to it, I would imagine that to most parents, that's got to be very comforting.
You know what? Besides, yeah, I mean, I would assume it is, but the thing that I feel like my biggest attribute is, and I'm just gonna always be me, right? And I think people feel the sincerity and the genuineness, and my faith is a part of that, a big part of it. But I just think that people appreciate you being just honest, open, and sincere. And so, you know, what's interesting about that is that, and I always get these crazy looks, even when I was at Notre Dame, is that when I'm recruiting someone, I try to de-recruit them with the truth. I try to scare them off with the truth, and I make sure they know, because I'm a person that has extremely high expectations. Not pacifying anybody. You aren't the greatest thing since sliced bread. That's just not what it is. So I feel we have an obligation as leaders to make sure we set very realistic expectations for these young people. And from a credibility standpoint, when they do show up on campus, the ones that do pick or have picked the institutions I've been at, the credibility is already established because they know exactly what they signed up for. So yeah, I just think, again, people appreciate sincerity and just openness and honesty so that they can make a choice. Because at the end of the day, that's really what you're trying to give them, a choice to go to the best place for them.
Yeah, Coach Ruff used to say, Ruff and McNeil used to say, and he probably still does, but he used to say, real recognizes real.
Man, and that is a legend, man. The fact that you're doing an interview with me and you mentioned his name, I am like honored, because he is an absolute legend. That's a giant right there now.
Yeah, we love Coach Ruff. Wish he was still here.
Man, everybody loves him.
No
I
doubt
don't know him, and I love him.
Speaking of someone that can go in the living room, when you had Coach Ruff and McNeil, he always talked about he had daughters, but still on the team he had sons. And when he could go in there and you could sit at the kitchen table with mom, you knew that he was going to take care of your son. No doubt about it. Let's talk about recruiting, Coach. I know that's been a tough period with COVID. You had the Zooms like you're doing right now with us. How has it been to be able to get on the recruiting trail and have some sense of normalcy now?
You know what's funny, man, is you could tell that you don't. I mean, I love tough, man. I mean, it's supposed to be that way. That presents us with more opportunities, right? So, I tell you what, man, we adjusted because that's what you have to do. We went deep in relationships, which is what we do, and we found a way to use technology to allow us to transcend geographical boundaries. Right now, I'm having more fun than I've ever had, though, because we're able to, since June 1st, we're able to have people on campus. We've been getting back at camps. Man, it's just one of those deals where I've always enjoyed, and I love being around people. But when you have something taken away from you, you just enjoy it that much more. And so I'm used to always squeezing every bit and every ounce of quality out of everything anyway. Now I'm squeezing that thing and ringing it twice, just really enjoying some face-to-face time with recruits, their parents, and our families as well, so just all of that stuff is good. I mean, they cut into me and my staff's family potlucks, right? We couldn't meet in person. So we're happy to be doing that stuff again.
Coach, we talked about a little bit of everything, but the most obvious question, when Charleston Southern rolls into Greenville week 4, what are the Pirates going to see? Well, I mean, what kind of football team do you have in terms of your style of offense, style of defense? What are the strengths and weaknesses of your team?
You know what, man, we really, really focus on the things that we need to do to get better. And that's what we really look at. But what we're always trying to do week in and week out is just be consistently consistent and, and play really complementary football in all 3 phases of the game. Offensively, we are a spread team, but I am a running back at heart. So Coach Coster, our offensive coordinator, does a good job of pacifying me that every time he talks about the spread offense, he then adds on the caveat that we want to be the most physical spread offensive team in the country, right? So he has to pacify the running back in me. I love that when he does that. On defense, we want to keep things simple, right? See ball, hit ball. We call it caveman football. See ball, hit ball. Wherever it is, you go sort it out. We find it physically and we'll sort it out later. And then we want our special teams to be special. Those are our elite guys who we call on them to get it done in one play, 4 to 6 seconds. And so, again, just complimentary football, but having fun. I think so often, man, we lose the joy of the sport within the competition. And it's been my experience as a player and as a coach, the more fun you're having, the harder you compete. And so that's who we try to be week in and week out. And we don't change it versus who we're playing. We just are always trying to love our guys to excellence in Christ so they can work through that standard and not to it.
Coach, this is a program, anybody that has followed college football in the last couple of years, and Jamie Chadwell, the job that he did at Charleston Southern back from 2013 to 2016, has certainly shown what can be accomplished there. So far in your first 2 years, 6-6, 2-2, just give us a glimpse on the offensive side of the ball. I know you have a veteran quarterback, Jack Chambers, 5'10", 180 pounds, and he's a dual threat.
You still talking or did it cut?
It should be you now, Coach.
Yeah.
Okay.
Just talk about your quarterback, Jack Chambers, and some of your offensive skill pieces.
You know what? Jack's done a really good job of coming in and adjusting. They were clearly running a different offense when we got here, but he has thrived on us changing to that spread, that physical spread offense. He's really thrived because he is a dual threat. He's still learning, and that's what's exciting because we feel like his best days are ahead of him. As far as what I'm excited about, it really just is. I love to see our guys compete. I mean, I talked about everyone respects the process, right? And so it's so much that goes into it just to get to that Saturday is that I just always look forward to seeing those guys compete, getting a chance to go out to play with each other, to, have an additional shared experience with their brothers, with their coaches, and going out and making memories. So that's what I'm excited for more than anything.
Coach, one thing I had as far as the defensive side of the ball, I love defense. So talk about that. I know you said you keep it simple, but what about your guys on maybe the line or your linebackers, your DBs? Who's some guys that will stand out that Pirate fans would like to know about?
You know what? Everything starts up front. I mean, I don't care what offense or defense you run, it begins up front, right, with the big guys. And so on offense, obviously it's the O-line. Well, on defense, it's the D-line. And so guys such as Chandre Mims, Nick Sally, Anton Williams, guys who have been around here playing football for a pretty good amount of time. You just want to see those guys continue to develop. And a lot of their development is not just what they do individually, but how they affect and influence and make other guys around them better. And so we expect those guys to play hard, always play with heart, but also excited to see how they lead some of these younger guys to get them to, step their game up as well.
And as far as special teams, can you talk about some guys, maybe your place kicker, punter? I mean, all that, like you said, the complementary football, all 3 parts of the game is very important.
Man, I love my specialists, and we got so much work to do, man. I don't even know where to begin. We were not particularly well in the spring, and again, that's one of the benefits of playing opponents, because that could have got masked and taken into the fall. So didn't do a particularly good job. I know our specialists are taking that as a challenge. We've had some guys join us who weren't here. That's going to help push from some competition standpoint. But when we line up, those guys will be ready to go. They have pride, and more importantly, they love their brothers, and they don't want to let them down. And so, we want special teams to be special. I figure Nate Toole has been around here. He was a young man that came in and actually set a record last year, coming off the bench by replacing our other kicker and kicking the farthest field goal in history. So Nate's a very hard worker. You got Miller Braddock, who's a punter. And so we have a couple young men that have been around. We have some pieces that are going to push them. But at the end of the day, those guys are going to, they're going to step up when called upon, because they love their brothers and they don't want to let them down.
Coach, I had a question as far as the transfer portal. Has that actually helped you guys being an FCS? Does that help you when you have the transfer portal where you guys can pick up some guys maybe from Power 5 or Group of 5?
You know what? Not so much, because with the transfer portal, you also have the one-time transfer rule. So guys aren't transferring and coming down. They're transferring and going lateral. They're going from, one FBS to another FBS. So it has not, and I am not a particular guy that is looking in the portal. If I had my preference, I would try to grow it organically, just because you got a chance to develop guys and really have them bought into your culture. So, when you start talking about transfers, there are a lot of good ones out there, but really the biggest thing is, chemistry and fit, because that is important. You can have a lot of talent on paper, but if it doesn't play well together, they don't play well together, it really doesn't matter.
Yeah, you mentioned the transfer portal with the new rule at the FBS level, where you can transfer without sitting out a year. I think that's really going to change the dynamic for some FCS programs. Coach Houston, for example, came from James Madison, who took a lot of FBS transfers over the year. And it'll be interesting to see programs like that were upper echelon FCS schools that were used to getting FBS transfers, if they're not going to anymore as much, how that's going to affect their programs and recruiting going forward. And just to follow up to that, you mentioned wanted to win multiple national championships at Charleston Southern. When you take on East Carolina, you're taking on a guy, Mike Houston, who won a national championship at the FCS level. What are your thoughts of Coach Houston and his staff and his reputation, particularly at your level, the FCS level?
Man, obviously, James Madison is, who James Madison is, and he had a big part of doing that. So nothing but respect. I do not know him personally, but his resume speaks for himself. The good thing about Coach Houston is he is not worried about what I think of him. So he's not losing any sleep over that. But like I said, his resume speaks for itself, what he did at James Madison and what he's been able to do throughout his career. And that's why he's at ECU, right? Because they winning follows him. And so.
Coach, final thing I have for you. I mentioned earlier, it'll be game 4 for the Pirates, September 25th, 6:00 kickoff on ESPN Plus. And for you guys, it'll be your third game. You actually get your season underway 2 weeks prior on September 11th against the Citadel with that crosstown battle. So touch on that as we're winding this down.
At that point, in regards to, we would have had 2 opportunities to go out and play together. And obviously, whether it's 3 games or 4 games, man, we'll be ready to go, just as they will be too.
No doubt. Coach, I have one final question for you, the toughest question. Do you like barbecue? Because we have a lot of barbecue in Greenville, so we'll be glad to send some barbecue your way when you come there to Greenville on the 25th.
It's funny. So for the past, now it is going on 8 months, I've now been pescatarian, and so I am not eating anything with fish, and primarily it's fruits and veggies for me, and a lot of salads. So I've always been funny about how I ate anyway in moderation, but I will, if it's plant-based, I will still eat barbecue sauce on it. But I don't know if they figured out how to do the barbecue thing pescatarian style yet.
Oh, barbecue shrimp.
There you go. Okay. I appreciate it, man. I'm there all day then on that now, all day.
Delicious. Grilled the shrimp, barbecue sauce. Yeah, that's great.
There you go.
Works for me.
Coach, thank you so much. You spent a lot of time with us. It means a lot, and we're really happy to have you on. Love to have you back on sometime past the season, obviously. And good luck to you this summer, and look forward to hopefully we meet you on September 25th.
Man, thank you, thank you all so much, man. It's been an absolute pleasure. Yeah, just been fun hanging out, man. I thank you for the opportunity.
Hi, this is ESPN's Dave Lamont, and you're listening to the Sports Objective Podcast, the unofficial podcast of the Pirates.